how do I balance between being mean to myself versus being hard on myself, and in what situations is it serving versus not serving, right? Because hey, if I'm getting on stage to perform a talk in front of a couple hundred people, I'm gonna be hard on myself because I'm not gonna get up on that stage and be unprepared. There is just an eternal balancing act, and I don't have a good answer for how to figure that out, but I think that is the nuance of being a emotionally intelligent person or emotionally professional person, is understanding, when do you need to be hard on yourself and when it's serving you and when you do not.
Welcome to the Culture Goodr podcast with Stephen Leese and Shaun Tinney. This podcast is a behind the shades look at creating and changing culture inside of Goodr sunglasses. You can live with the status quo, you can challenge the status quo, or you can do what we do at Goodr and status the quo challenge.
All right. Well, we're about to get into talking about self-awareness, but first, lightning round, yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay. Cups in the cupboard, right side up, upside down?
Upside down.
Okay. Books, audiobooks, or podcasts?
Audiobooks and podcasts. I've only read like 6 books ever in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Audiobook, read it too. It's
For
easy.
sure.
Yeah. Pen or pencil?
Pen.
Got one right
Yeah, I've got them in hand.
there. 3 words that describe you.
Fun, weird, and direct.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And what has helped you most from a self-awareness perspective?
Oh man, I know my therapist. A lot of things.
Right. I know. Isn't that funny? It's like self-help, other help. It's someone else who helps me self-reflect.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it here. I think self-awareness is fundamentally a paradox, right? Because we are always ourselves, but we're not always aware of ourselves. And that's a tricky game, but how do we work self-awareness into the context of Goodr?
Yeah, it's everywhere in little ways. I mean, one thing that we do is Enneagram, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
How would you describe the Enneagram for new listeners?
Oh man. It's a personality style system that helps us to understand our motivations, strengths, and challenges so that we can work with them.
Yeah, and so everybody here is tested for the Enneagram, and you right away, once you first go through it, even if you are a person who thinks it's bullshit at first, what becomes very aware, like, God damn it. You start recognizing patterns in yourself.
Totally.
So, right, we start people off with that. And that is very much just like a know thyself. The goal there is to not restrict you, it's to free you.
Oh yeah. It's like, it's not putting you in a box, it's showing you the box you're already in so you can get out.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I think it starts there. Also, we have people do a lot of self-evaluation, which I think really helps in the context of them to start learning themselves, because it's a hard thing to self-evaluate. I've for sure done a thing where I thought I was great at something and other people were like, you weren't. I've also thought I bombed a talk and people be like, that's the best talk I've ever done.
Yeah.
And so
oh man, that's funny too.
It works both ways, but I don't know. I think it's around in a bunch of little ways. And also we really encourage authenticity, which I think helps. What's your thoughts? How else do we do it around here?
Well, yeah, I mean, you covered it, the quarterly reviews, making sure that that's a part of that. It's really a practice. Like you say, there's so many little ways, but those all add up. The more we practice it, the better we get. And then something on that last point there is like, the more you accept yourself, the more you're willing to see maybe what was previously a blind spot or own like, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't my best work, Yeah. Because at first it's like, we got to defend something, but then you realize, oh no, I just need to become more myself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the more I learn about myself, the more I am actually okay with things I'm not good at.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. I'm good at a lot of things I don't need to be good at that.
Exactly.
As a CEO, everybody panders to me like, oh, you're right. I'm like, hey, I'm good at a lot of things. I suck at that. Thank you, but I'm not good.
Right. Yeah. That's great. It's liberating. Let's see. So we just talked about the Enneagram. So that's like a common connection point that we all share.
Yeah.
What did you learn most about yourself through that personality system?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm type 7, which is optimist. And so I'm very clearly an optimist. I think one of the things that I really learned in there, I learned 2 things. I learned one that I hate disappointing people. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's right. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? I really hate disappointing people. So I've done a lot of work there. But I think the thing that probably I recognized really early that to take back to self-awareness is when I'm stressed out, I go to a type 1, which is a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And when I find myself nitpicking things to death, that is a sign for me to be like, oh, you are fucking stressed.
Yeah.
Back up. Get off that person's back. That's not that big of a deal. it is for sure something I've learned to turn into when I am like overcritical and I'm a perfectionist. That's usually coming from a place of stress.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a great sign because then you can notice your pattern, ideally, right? And then go, oh, okay, I see what's going on here, and then make a change that's healthy for you and hopefully people around you too.
Yeah, and I still slip into it.
Yeah, right. Well, who doesn't?
But yeah, and I think it's a also I like talked about in the intro. I'm a huge optimist, and so I really value type 5s and type 6s as a balance point for me too.
Yeah.
As somebody who's more skeptical, somebody who's going to think more about something, it's really a person that I value, and I look at it as like the opposite, like angel devil on the shoulder, right?
Yeah,
is a I need that person to keep me in check.
Yeah, for sure. If you're always yes-anding or like, it'll be fine, and someone's like, it might not be, and you're like, it'll be, and you're like, maybe we should listen to what we're talking about there.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, the Enneagram helps us to see some of our blind spots, which at first can be hard to absorb and work with. But even once you can see them, it's still challenging to work with them, right? So do you have any practices that help you to work with anything that's, kind of outside your awareness by default?
I mean, I would just start by getting a therapist. I mean, one, ask for help, right? Ask people, what are your blind spots? If you want to be a master at anything, you need to seek feedback. And so start by seeking feedback and listen to what people say. And then the other thing that's really important in there is ask for accountability on the things that you're self-aware of.
Yeah.
Right? So if I know... recently I was talking to Hannah, my assistant, about my calendar, and we were talking about she was talking about not filling it up, because I'm the type of person where I can do that, and I go, hey, I need you to hold me accountable to not let that happen. Right, so I know myself well enough to ask for accountability on that.
Yeah,
right, and so I think those are like really important things. Seek it out from other people. Ask them to hold you accountable, and then, you can set up systems to help yourself. Like I'm trying to think of one that's very real. Well, I talked about in the intro. Every minute that goes past noon that I don't work out, the the chance that it's going to happen, it's plummeting.
Yep.
And so I work my schedule so that I get a workout in before 2 p.m. Whenever I can.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting way better at the illusion of, I'll just work out tonight. I'm like, you know what, Stephen, just let yourself off the hook today.
Yeah.
So I think like that, but like, hey, what are those things that you know about yourself, and then create systems in your life to help hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's like I do the least, like the minimum viable, rep or whatever. So if it's like I want to do 10 push-ups a day, just like my habit list says do 1 push-up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do 1, then I'll probably do 10, but like just enough to keep the chain connected,
Oh, for sure. I mean, on that, right? Sometimes if I'm really tired and I don't want to go on a run, but hey, you know what? Why don't you just get your gear on? You can listen to a podcast. If you walk, you walk. And like, by the time I get out there, I'm like, I'm not going to fucking walk.
Right,
but like,
right, totally.
I'm okie doking myself.
Yep. You got to talk that part of your brain into like, all right, I'll tie these shoes and we can head out the door. Yeah. So when we're overcome by emotions, especially like anger, like you're saying, like as a 7, you drift into that perfectionist place. That's where anger lives for you, essentially. It can be hard to know what to do with that, right? But when you recognize it, you can do something on purpose. So how have you found ways, like practices, to help you stay aligned with your values when you're overcome with an emotion like that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I'll speak to 2 of them. One is, when I'm really pissed off, I will actually say to myself, like, I'm fucking pissed right now.
Yeah.
Right. I will actually, in my head, if it's appropriate, I will say it out loud, kind of depending on the situation. And that actually is just a huge help, right? Just giving myself permission to be pissed.
Yeah.
Because it's okay to be pissed. It's not okay to be an asshole, right? It's okay to be pissed. It's not okay to like punch a hole in the wall.
Right.
And so, right. So that's one thing, is I will just verbalize, like, I'm really fucking pissed about that.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, Sean, I'm really fucking pissed about this right now.
Yeah.
We need to solve it. Just that little verbal, right? That is, and it's, I'm fucking pissed about it.
Right.
So that's one thing. Or in the context here at goodr, especially if this has happened where people here melt down, right? They fuck something up and I challenge them on it, And I watch people spiral, and inside my mind, I'll say like well, this person's spiraling.
Yeah.
Like, huh. Like that is, they don't even know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I will legit kind of narrate the experience to help myself process it.
Man, that's really interesting. I think that would help me a ton because it takes like, I'm a like type 9 peacemaker, right?
Yeah.
So anger is like the last thing I realize. Like my wife will know it way before me and she's like, hey, you're mad. I'm like, I'm not, it's just this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, all right, I'm mad, It would be so much easier if I could just go, oh yeah, I think I'm mad about this and like talk myself through it. So taking a page out of your book there.
Yeah. It is I don't know, for whatever reason, if I could just narrate what's going on, it helps.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we all beat ourselves up when we're not at our best, right? But you're pretty great at like taking the lesson and moving on. Any advice for those of us who struggle with that?
Oh man, I mean, you'd be a type 7, then you're
too late now.
Yeah. Optimist, looking forward. I mean, I don't know. I think most people just need to be more kind to themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Was it that like, hey, don't say that about hey, Shaun, don't say that about my friend Shaun.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If I'm like being mean to myself, like, don't talk to my friend like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people need to give themselves more of a break.
Yeah.
I think we are just too hard on ourselves.
Right. Yeah. All of us are. It's so easy to be kind to a friend and just brutal to yourself, in ways that we would never be to someone else.
Yeah. And I think the hard thing, and the other side of that coin is I've got here in my life because I'm hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mean to myself. And so, right. So like my how do I balance between being mean to myself versus being hard on myself? And in what situations is it serving versus not serving?
Right.
Right. Because if I'm getting on stage to perform a talk in front of a couple hundred people, I'm going to be hard on myself. Because I'm not going to get up on that stage and be unprepared. If I fuck up the something in a presentation on accident, well, like that, right? Like there is just an eternal balancing act, and I don't have a good answer for how to figure that out. But I think that is the nuance of being a emotionally intelligent person, emotionally professional person, is understanding, when do you need to be hard on yourself and when it's serving you and when you do not.
Yeah. What I just took from that, Stephen, is like you are disciplined, but you're not punishing.
Yeah.
You're sticking to a practice and doing it in a way that is helpful to you and like self-respecting and contributing to your well-being.
For sure. Yeah.
Versus brutal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about a practice is the more you do something, the better you get it and you understand it, and you can kind of let yourself off the hook, right? I mean, the more we do this podcast, the more we know where we need to be when, the more we actually learn what's going on. But that also comes after a ton of reps.
Right.
And so it's the give and take, where are you going to spend your energy?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's important to like recording your talks, for instance. As you're giving the talk, you might have a pretty loud inner critic, and then you watch it back and you're like, that was fine.
Yeah.
Reality checks are good.
I got to coach 8 speakers at goodr to deliver a talk in front of the entire company in September, and it was really interesting for me to give them tips that I need to be listening to more, right?
Yeah.
Of like, hey, you're gonna write the talk and you're gonna have a line that you want to deliver in a perfect way. Mm-hmm. And then you're gonna fuck that up at some point during your talk, and nobody's gonna know but you.
Yeah.
And so just remember that when you're on stage, nobody knows that you fucked that line up but yourself.
Right.
And so you can either you can give yourself a break in that moment, or you can get stuck on it and fuck up your entire talk because you're not willing to give yourself a break.
Yeah.
That's actually what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to them and being like, all right, Stephen, make sure you bottle this and fucking drink it for yourself.
You need this, buddy. Awesome. Well, we were talking earlier about the quarterly reviews and how self-awareness plays into that. In that context, we actually value it so much. We offer a self-awareness bonus point. Can you talk through that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, when we first started doing our AMP reviews, which is our quarterly review system, now it's 3 categories: autonomy, mastery, purpose, and you get scale of 1 to 5 on each. So just for our listeners to contextually understand this. And now you can self-evaluate yourself as high as a 3. When we first started doing it, you could self-evaluate yourself as high as a 5.
Yeah.
And so just to understand the scale for context, 1 is 0 is basically you did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
1 is you basically did nothing. Right.
Something, but
yeah.
only slightly more than nothing.
2 is you gave it just a half-ass effort. No. So yeah, right. A 2 is a half, or no.
2 is solid.
2 is solid. Yeah, thank you. 2 is solid. 2 is actually the expectation. 3 is you did your job with a really high polish. 4 is you high polish, went above and beyond. And 5 is awe-inspiring. It's a flamingo, right?
Yeah.
But when we first started doing this, so many people would self-evaluate at a 5. And we realized, well, we needed to correct this. So we've worked the system down to you can self-evaluate yourself to a 3. And then the committee that evaluates you actually gives you your real score. But we wanted to, this took us years to figure this trick out.
Yeah.
Now, if your self-evaluation is the exact same that the committee comes back with, which is pretty much your flock leader, your boss, then you actually get an extra point on your AMP.
Yeah.
Which is a wild concept to think about, right? So if you are completely aligned, and it doesn't matter the score, it doesn't matter good or bad, if you are completely aligned with your flock leader or flock star, then you get an extra point. And this all adds up to your raise at the end of the year. And so, there's actually these aren't fake points.
Right.
And it's a really interesting, it took us years to figure that out though. And now we're at 80% probably.
Oh yeah. And it's been as high, it's been way above 90.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not random. You're not guessing and hoping
No.
for the best, right? We have multiple checkpoints between flock leader and everyone in their flock so that they can go, hey, here's where I'm at right now. Here's what I'm aiming for. Are we good? Right.
Yeah.
You're not rolling in there hope I get that self-awareness bonus.
And that's another thing. It's really to incentivize both sides to have the conversation and be aligned, because if a flock leader, if there's no self-awareness bonuses in their flock during a quarter, I'm gonna tap my shoulder and be like, what the fuck is going on? Have you not been giving your team feedback for the past 3 months?
Right.
Yeah. And so it's a very nice system we have now.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So talk through best case, worst case scenarios when it comes to the self-scoring and the quarterly reviews.
Yeah. I mean, best case is that you just show up like a rock star and everybody knows you're a rock star and you make everybody's lives easier. So that's best case.
Right. Throughout the whole quarter.
Reviews
easy.
all the time. It's super easy.
Yeah.
So, there's that. Or what's slightly below that, but just slightly is you kill it, and sometimes it is always polished, always dialed, and sometimes it's a little off, and that's okay, and that's a little off, and you acknowledge it's a little off.
Right.
And so, right, I think the big thing, it's kind of a sliding scale, but nobody ever gets in trouble for turning in a C or 2 in this world. You get in trouble if you are you not self-aware of what's going on in your work quality.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the highest performers here, they have quarters for whatever reason. This happened. We know it. Life happens.
Yeah.
And they don't get a high score. And so I think that that's the absolute worst case is when somebody shows up to their quarterly review. And I haven't been on one of these in a while.
Yeah.
They show up to your quarterly review and they're like, oh, I'm self-evaluating myself a 3. And their flock leader is like, you're a 1.
Yeah.
That's
a big gap.
That's a big gap.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know. That is the absolute worst case scenario. But man, in the ones that I sit in now, I used to sit in every single one, obviously don't anymore.
Yeah.
But even this last 2 quarters ago, there was 2 really difficult people had difficult quarters, but they came in and they self-evaluated themselves very low.
Mm-hmm.
And that made that conversation so much easier. They knew it.
Yeah.
And that went well if you flip that. If they walk in cock of the walk and like boom, I think I got it for you. Like that's the worst thing you could do here.
Right. Yeah, totally. Maybe not though.
I mean,
yeah.
It's almost like the person who tells you I'm 15 minutes away and then shows up an hour late.
Right.
Like what is going through that person's mind that they couldn't connect those dots?
Mm-hmm. It's like, you haven't left yet, and it takes an hour to get there.
But here's the thing. I don't think that's the rub in this. I don't think they do know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I think they think that what they're doing is acceptable?
I would say potentially yes, or maybe they're hoping that if they believe it, you will too.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe I made some mistakes, but like it's mostly good, right? Like we think it's fine. And then just hoping that you'll like come along and be like, okay, cool, right? But that's where the challenge comes in, right? If someone evaluates themselves way off base, just from reality, like there's two ways that can go. They're either coming in like you're saying, like too high and like hoping to pad something that shouldn't be padded, or too low and like need to be like they need a pep talk or something.
Yeah.
Right. So how does each of those conversations tend to go as the person who's on a panel?
Yeah. Right. So, the one who comes in, the one that comes in higher than they should, that is hey, that conversation is, let me ground myself in this because it's I haven't had to do this in a while.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
It's a very like, actually for me, it's a curt, direct conversation of if you came in, if we would have talked before.
Right.
And I'd be, hey, we talked before and I told you you're doing C-level work.
Yeah.
And you just self-evaluate yourself in A. So here's what I'm most concerned about. I'm not concerned that you're doing C-level work. I can't decide if I'm more concerned that you think your C-level work is A-level work or that you were not listening during our last meeting.
Right.
I'm not sure which one of these is worth. It's at C, and we're gonna have an even tougher conversation next week. Right? It's like that is a gut punch.
Yeah.
Then the flip side is somebody comes in and is like, hey, I struggled this quarter for X, Y, and Z reasons. I think I earned a C. I'm like, hey, I get it. We've all had down quarters. Thank you for your self-awareness. I'm excited to see what you can do next quarter. And then, I am pumping them up as they walk out.
Right.
It's a complete flip.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm either going to knock you, like I will knock you down a peg or I will lift you up. Yeah. So it's really up to you.
Right. So I think that's important to know going in, right? Like, what kind of experience do I want to have here? And am I aware of how I'm doing or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we're a very timely company, and like you start meetings on time, end them on time, and hey, people being late happens, right? Like, come on, like it even happens to me, and I'm a very punctual person. But the person who walks in the room is like, "I'm sorry, I'm late, everybody," and just goes and sits down, starts right. That's all good.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody just casually rolls in. Like, I'm like, hey. A little self-awareness
right,
here.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge what's going on.
Do you need to be told? Because it seems like you need to be told. Yeah. All right. So we value self-awareness, but there's some caveats and maybe like you want to throw a disclaimer in there?
Yeah. I mean, during the ownership, hey, anything that being self-aware is really important. But if you're constantly just so anything that is let me reframe it. I'm bad at spelling. So I know contextually where I can do that and where I can't. But anything that I'm writing that goes in the outside world, I cannot be, hey, I'm just bad at spelling. I have like it's proof by actually two people here because of that. And I don't care how self-aware I am, how fucking bad I am at spelling. Actually, I do care how self-aware I am because I put the systems in place to do it. I would actually argue that if somebody is constantly just doing the fallback, like, oh yeah, I'm just not good at that. They're not self-aware. They're for sure not self-aware. They're not taking ownership. They're just being unprofessional.
Right. Yeah. Just agreeing not to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think anything that you lean on too much will become a weakness. So,
right. For sure.
That thing.
For sure. So how can people start to implement this? Like, what's the best starting point for increasing self-awareness in a professional setting?
I mean, constantly asking for feedback and then taking that feedback or those blind spots and make the plan that you need. All right. So for example, I really, for the past year, and I started it maybe a year and a half ago, really focus on being a calm leader because when I go scorched earth, it's fucking scorched.
Hot.
It's hot. And it's not good. At that moment, I'm not getting anything from that, right? Me being in my role, the CEO of the company, everything that I say is taken, everything comes in my mouth, it comes out so much hotter than I don't need to be hot. Like people.
Yeah.
So I need to be very, very calm. People are taking their cues from me, and so it's really important, even in the craziest situations, for me to live into that. And so recognize that was something I wanted to work on through a number of. So found out. I mean, I saw it myself. I also heard it from people. And so I took a step back. I'm like, all right, well, what are the things I need to put in place for myself to be more calm? And so a couple of things that I remember I read several books on it. So that's one thing. And I realized, well, hey, I don't have this deck in front of me, but I explained it in an eloquent way to the company. But a couple of things are the better I can be at giving feedback in the moment is really important so that I don't hold on to something and tell a story.
Right.
And the more I do that, the more calm I become, right? The more I'm like, hey, you got to change that. And so that was like one little thing that I recognized. There was a couple of things, but that's the one I'll just stick to here. And so for anybody that when they're self-aware, understand what's going on, understand the knowledge of it. And so there's not a shortage of books or podcasts or YouTube videos in the entire world. You can learn.
Plenty of therapists too.
Plenty of therapists about anything. And then really understand what works for you. And I'm just a big believer in creating systems to help solve it. So yeah, so to recap all that, constantly be reflecting on yourself, have a therapist, ask for feedback directly, listen to the feedback, try, want to grow. When you have really bad experiences where you feel shitty about how you acted, that's the one you probably should lean into the most and then work on solving that first. And so that is the unthought out clunky answer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's like it'd be great if we could learn from our wins, but usually we're just like, woo, and then just beat ourselves up over the losses like over and over.
Yeah.
But it sounds like little compassion in there. You can go, all right, well, that wasn't great, but what did I learn from it? And what do I want to do to help myself in the future, hold myself accountable?
Yeah.
Grow, move through it.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. All right. So what's one thing you're self-aware about, but you still fuck up?
Well, spelling. And so, I came to a conclusion a while ago. I can either first of all, spell check's my best invention ever to me.
Right.
But so I'm mindful of it. And then in the areas I need to, I just get support on it. That's one, but that's a really easy one, right? I joked about knowing the best time of day to do anything. I talk about work, but it can be anything. Also, if I have a really, I'm very self-aware about this. My brain is firing so much quicker in the morning. So if I need to do really hard knowledge work, it's in the morning. We record this podcast in the afternoon because I can be really exhausted and talk, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And so, right, that is a thing that I just understand about myself, and so I try and navigate my life around it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You have anything?
For me, life is better when I wake up early.
Yeah.
And I'll tell myself that when it's 5 a.m. and I'm like, I could just sleep till 6. But then I do that and it's like, and then it's 6:30 and time in the morning goes by so fast for some reason. Yeah. It's just like, I would much rather be ahead of everything and feeling like I'm prepared and moving toward it on purpose than just like a little bit behind all day long.
That's right.
And then what's one thing you've learned about yourself in the past few months?
Well, I learned this. I learned that, so I really enjoy inspiring people, and I would have said that I'm amazing at inspiring people, and maybe I'm pretty good at it, but I actually think what I'm better at is not inspiring people, is pushing people. And it's something that Kelly, who works here, her and I were talking about on a run recently, but I'm really good at understanding what needs to motivate somebody. And then sometimes it is it's a gentle, pat on the back, and sometimes it's a full-on fucking shove.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at pushing people and agitating them and getting them to the next level. And it's something that I'm very aware now, and so I'm trying to figure out how do I use that to my advantage to help people around me more.
Yeah, you see where they can grow. Like, what's the fuel for this engine? I can find it.
But even if I consider myself a very self-aware person, I'm still learning stuff about myself all the time. Yeah. How about you? What's something you've learned recently about yourself?
All right, let's see. 2 things. One, I think I'm done with the black V-neck phase from COVID. I opened my drawer. I had probably 18 of the same black V-neck in there, and I was like, all right, guys, I think I'm gonna keep one to you.
Yeah.
in case for rainy day.
It's been a nice journey.
All the rest of you are going to get donated. Yeah, so that's one. And then just an unfortunate thing. Someone hit my car the other day, and my wife was with me, and she was like, "You're mad, but you're very calm, but your vocabulary is extreme. So I think you're talking about how you feel instead of just letting yourself feel it." I was like, very astute.
God damn it.
Like, I don't want to freak out right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to speak calmly and clearly and apparently outrageously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I love that. I mean, clearly Jen knows that. I mean, back to the earlier question, hey, if you want to learn things about yourself, I mean, if you have a partner, ask your partner and be open to it, right?
Yeah, listen to what they say.
Be open to it because they probably know things that you have that you can't even conceive.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's tough. Did we cover anything else you want to circle back on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, something else that was pointed out to me very recently is I cannot, when I'm in an Uber, I always have the map open on my phone.
Yeah.
Where's this person going? And it was found out by Ben, one of the co-founders of Goodr here.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at you. You have no control back here. You have no control. You're trying to control it. Just laugh it.
Watching turn by turn. All right.
Let me just put that in my pocket.
Awkward, but effective.
Yeah. That is true.
Nice. Well, thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Until next time, be excellent to each other.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Goodr podcast. To submit questions for the podcast, learn more about our culture, and learn how you can status the quote challenge, head over to goodr.com/culture. And don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're listening, including on YouTube, where you can now watch all of our new episodes. Who knows? You might even catch a glimpse of Carl at our headquarters if he's not already passed out at the tiki bar from all the margaritas.